All right, let's get into it. Today, we're going to unpack the story of a phone that was supposed to be a total win for Samsung's most loyal customers, the Galaxy S21 Fan Edition. But as you'll see, for a lot of people, this story, well, it did not have a happy ending. It's really a story of high hopes, major frustrations, and a promise that, for some, was just completely broken.
And that right there, that's a direct quote from a longtime Samsung user on Reddit. It's pretty powerful, and it really captures how so many owners felt. So the big question we're digging in today is, what went so horribly wrong with a phone that was literally made for the fans?
You know, to really get the disappointment, you have to first understand the promise. When the S21 FE launched back in January 2022, it came with this very specific and honestly very appealing idea.
The whole fan edition concept was kind of brilliant. The idea was you'd get the core experience of a top-tier S-series phone, the powerful processor, that beautiful screen, the great cameras, but at a price that was just a bit easier to swallow. It was supposed to be the smart choice for people who wanted the best without paying that absolute top-dollar premium.
And look, on paper, this phone looked absolutely incredible. A gorgeous 120Hz AMOLED display, that means super smooth scrolling. Premium materials like Gorilla Glass Victus and an aluminum frame, it sounded tough. It even had an IP68 water resistance rating. I mean, it ticked all the right boxes. But notice that little asterisk on the last line. 2 different versions existed. That one tiny detail, well, it would end up defining a user's entire experience.
And this is exactly where the story splits in two. See, depending on where you bought the S21 FE, you either got one with Qualcomm's Snapdragon 888 chip or one with Samsung's own in-house Exynos 2100. Now, in theory, they were supposed to be comparable. But in the real world, this one component created 2 wildly different phones, with 2 wildly different destinies. For years, fans had kind of known that Exynos chips tended to run hotter and weren't this power efficient. And with the S21 FE, that reputation was about to be put to the ultimate test. So, how did that phone that looks so perfect on paper start showing some really serious cracks in the real world? Well, for users of one of those versions, the problems started pretty much right away.
One of the very first red flags, and a complaint you see over and over again in user forums, was the heat. And I'm not just talking about getting a little warm during gaming. We're talking about severe, constant overheating, a problem that was especially bad on the Exynos models.
This quote from a user just shows you how bad it really was. Their phone wasn't just heating up when they were using it, it was getting hot while doing absolutely nothing, literally burning through more than half the battery overnight. This wasn't just some small annoyance, it was a fundamental flaw.
Of course, that constant heat led directly to the next huge problem, just terrible battery life. People were reporting having to charge their phones 2, sometimes 3 times a day just to get through, which completely defeats the purpose of a modern smartphone, right?
Then came a problem that was just shocking, really. The phone's plastic back panel literally started falling off. The adhesive would just fail, and the whole back cover would start peeling away from the frame. It was a defect a ton of owners reported. And here's why that's such a huge deal. Samsung advertised this phone with an IP68 rating. That means it's supposed to be sealed tight against water and dust. Yet for so many people, the device was literally coming apart at the seams. This wasn't just a cosmetic thing, it was a major failure in build quality and quality control.
But, believe it or not, overheating and physically falling apart were just the opening act. The truly catastrophic flaw that would seal the S21 FE's reputation was actually still to come.
Just imagine this for a second. You get a notification for a totally normal software update. You install it, and when your phone reboots, the screen is ruined. For a terrifying number of users, this became their reality. It seemed like routine software updates were somehow triggering a terminal hardware failure in the display.
And it was like this awful lottery. It might start with a single faint green or white line. Then, maybe a few days later, another would pop up. People were reporting their screens being taken over by this rainbow of dead pixels, multiplying until the display was just completely unusable. As one person said, their phone went from 1 line to 13 lines through no fault of their own. And this slide really gets to the core of the 2 different stories of the S21 FE. Because while no phone is ever perfect, these reports of catastrophic screen failure, overheating, and build quality problems were overwhelmingly coming from owners of the Exynos version. On the flip side, you had so many Snapdragon users saying they had a great, trouble-free experience, even calling it their favorite phone. It was truly a tale of 2 devices hiding in one body.
Now, when your product is failing on such a huge scale, your customer service is your last line of defense. But for many S21 FE owners, the company's response felt less like help and more like the final nail in the coffin. So first, let's talk cost. If your phone was out of warranty or if Samsung just flat out denied your claim, you were looking at about $125 for an official screen replacement. Okay, remember that number. Now compare it to this. By late 2023, you could go out and buy a whole other used S21 FE for as little as $114. The math just didn't make any sense. Why would you pay more to fix a known defect than the entire phone was even worth?
And this led to this incredibly frustrating loop for customers. So, get this. Your phone has a known defect where the back falls off. You get it fixed for cheap at a local shop. Then, later on, the screen dies from a completely separate known defect. But, because of that first third-party repair, Samsung would deny the free screen replacement, basically punishing customers for dealing with the phone's first manufacturing flaw. It's a total catch-22.
So after all of that drama, what's the final verdict on the Galaxy S21 FE? And what can its pretty troubled history teach us as people who buy this stuff?
Now, to be fair, Samsung did keep its software promise. The phone launched with Android 12, and it got its fourth and final major OS upgrade to Android 16 in late 2025, just like they said it would. But that also means its software journey is officially over. No more new features are coming, and its last security patches will stop in early 2027.
This pretty blunt take from a tech reviewer really nails the consensus. The fan edition was supposed to be the better value, but with the quality control lottery and the falling prices of actual used flagships, most people figured out you were just better off buying a year-old regular S-series phone instead. The whole value proposition it fell apart.
So, what's the big takeaway here? The S21 FE became a really powerful lesson. It taught us that specs on paper mean nothing without real-world reliability. It proved that a single component can make or break a device. And maybe most importantly, it showed that even the most loyal fans can be driven away when major hardware failures are met with frustrating customer service.
So in the end, was the S21 FE really an addition for the fans? Or did it just become a cautionary tale about the risks we take with our tech and a story about the fragile trust between a company and its most passionate customers? I think that's the real legacy it leaves behind.